Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ladies Power Lunch. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am really excited because we're talking today with Tiffany Winfield Alexander. She is really an expert when it comes to this whole conversation that we're having about money mindset.
Mm,
And she's an expert, certainly in terms of what she teaches her clients, but she's also an expert in terms of life experience, lived experience.
yeah.
And I think, you know what? The school of life sometimes is kind of the best school because it helps us to be able to, when we're talking to our patients or our clients, to be able to really empathize with what it is that they are going
Mm,
through. And
mhm.
I feel like one of the people who can really empathize about this whole idea of money mindset is
Mhm.
Tiffany. And that's one of the reasons why when she uh, held her hand up and said, "Hey, this is one of the topics that I feel really, really comfortable
Yeah.
talking about." I invited her, absolutely. Come on down. Let's talk. I want to say hi also to everybody who's joining us over in our Ladies Power Lunch Facebook group. I want to say thank you for just tuning in and checking out what it is that we're up to this afternoon. So, Tiffany, welcome. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Can you share with everybody who you are, what it is that you do in the world, and maybe just give us a little bit of backstory about how you came to be doing this kind of work?
Sure, sure. So I am a life coach and I work with personal and professional development. So we do a lot of strategic work and action plans and goals achievement that way. But also the mind, body, spirit balance aspect. I'm a very holistic life coach in that, yes, we're going to address the thing that you came to talk about, but we're also going to explore those adjacent side issues, right? That sometimes we don't even know are adding their flavor to the mix so that as you achieve your goals, they're sustainable, they're balanced, they feel good, and you can really get a hold on your overall goals, not just the one thing that you came to talk about. So that's what I like to do. Um, Wow, this topic specifically is it's near and dear to my heart because in full disclosure, I am in no way, shape, or form what you would call a professional expert. I am not a financial planner. My background is not in the banking or insurance or personal strategy in that area. Where my expertise has come in, as Dr. Davia has shared, is life experience, scraped knees, lots of tears, lots of late night hours with the calculator, lots of mistakes and missed steps that I decided, you know what? As I learn from them, I'm going to help other people in similar situations, or at least people who can see themselves in my situation. Know that number one, you can come through this whole situation about money, lack, money mindset, budgeting, etc., and you can do it um, as a single person. You can do it as a married person, a divorced person, a parent, a single parent. There's lots of different ways. There's a common thread that goes through this need to feel safe and to feel secure. And a lot of what we want out of life, we can't really focus on if we don't feel first safe and secure. And money mindset, money resources, that's a big part of that. So that's how I started to get into it, is because I saw that it was a common thread through most of my coaching clients, almost all of my coaching clients. And I don't want to say all only because I don't want to be dishonest, but the majority of my coaching clients at some point have dealt with this feeling of lack or scarcity or need for safety. So that's why it kept coming up. And I said, this is a need, I want to address it. Dr. Davia, I
Here,
can't hear you.
I'm
Oh, there you are.
absolutely unmuted right now. So
Mm-hmm.
here's what I'm wondering, because
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to get to an understanding that is common to all of us. When we're talking about money mindset, what is it
Mm-hmm.
that we're really talking about? What is it that we mean?
Mm-hmm. We're talking about, number one, in my opinion, now this is my opinion and this is my experience with myself and my clients. I believe we're talking about awareness, about what actually is, what is our truth, belief. what do we believe, and what is our knowledge. So when you combine those three things together, it starts to form how we feel in terms of safety and security. If you have a cursory awareness, you might not feel capable or knowledgeable to move forward. If you have a lot of knowledge, but you don't believe in yourself, that is going to impact. If you have a lot of messages coming to you from outside and they're not your own, then you don't have firm belief. So it's kind of like this hodgepodge of ideas that are intangible, but just as real. And the impact is great and long lasting if we don't bring attention to it. And everybody at some point deals with this, whether they put their active attention on it or not, it impacts all of us.
Interesting. Really, really interesting. So, I mean, safety, security, this is something that is on the hierarchy of needs. It's really huge, right? It's something
Mhm,
that we
mhm,
all want to feel. How
mhm,
can we really improve our mindset when it comes to finances? How can we get away from feeling that scarcity and that lack,
mhm, mhm.
especially when perhaps we might look at our bank balance and it might not be
Woo!
the $1 million that we expected to be there. I don't know.
Right, right. Listen, so one of the first things I had to deal with, and one of the first things that I recommend, is that we have to address our fear of the truth. We have to address the fear of the truth. My fear was that I was incapable, or that there's no way I could dig myself out of the hole, that I was in some way, shape, or form going to be lacking, and compounded by the fact that I was a parent, that I would pass this along to my children. So I
Mm,
had a lot of just motivators that were fear based. And that is one thing you have to be aware of, is where are your efforts coming from? What is the source of your why? Right. And even if you are operating from a, I'm afraid that I will lose, or I'm afraid that I don't have, um, the knowledge of that alone is a good starting point, because at least that's the truth, right? The other part is recognizing that our reality is exactly what we create, either by choice or lack of choice. And I have to be honest, it took me a long time to own my part in my scarce mindset, in my limiting beliefs. I had to own that. And it was hard. It was easy to say, well, I don't have the things I need because the job doesn't pay me enough money, or because somebody else got this promotion, or I don't have the time to go back to school to learn new skills, or I never learned how to do a proper budget. My mom didn't teach me this. My dad wasn't available for that. Like, there was a period of time where I looked to everyone else for the reason why I was in the state that I was in. And keep in mind that the state I was in changed. It looks different when you're young, when you're coupled, when you're single, when you're divorced, when you're a parent, when you're not parent. But wherever you are in your situation, the first part is really owning the truth that your situation is because you are choosing, either by action or inaction, to be in that place. And when you start to look at that thing, you start to realize, you know what, I have power to change this. It starts to shift. Did that answer your question?
it does, but tell me something. How,
Mm-hmm.
Tiffany, how did you go from, you know, thinking the way you were thinking to thinking
Mm-hmm.
something different? How did you
Mm-hmm.
actually embrace the idea
Yeah.
that our reality is what we create? Because I'm
Mm-hmm.
telling you right now, for some people, they might say it, but
Right.
actually embodying it and believing it,
Mm-hmm.
that's a completely different thing.
Right. So in that vein, it's nice to be able to have like the platitudes and the motivations and the here's in the morning I'm going to wake up and going to affirm these things. That's all fine, well and good, and I appreciate those things and I do those things.
Mhm.
But it also comes down to evidence. It also comes down to what is actually true. If I'm believing that I'm not capable of X, Y, or Z, Now I have to look back at my history and I have to prove that. Is that actually true? Or is that what I'm choosing to believe in this moment that supports me staying in my comfort zone?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
do I have the capacity to learn new things? Well, yes, I do have the capacity to learn new things. How do I know that? Because I've learned multiple new things in multiple different settings in the past. And so I can't use that as a crutch anymore. So I have to look at what is the evidence, right? Um, if I make a financial choice, for example, and as a result of that choice or non-choice, right? So I want to make sure I include non-choice. I want to include inaction as part of a choice. If as a result of my action or inaction, I have to face a consequence that impacts me financially, I have to deal with what is the evidence here. If I had, and I'm going to be very specific to an experience for myself, if I had picked up the phone and spoken to this creditor and made payment arrangements, would this account be in default? Okay, that's really clear and is really concise, but it's also hard, but it's also my truth, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so the bridge is awareness, right? To belief, to knowledge, to action. That's the piece right
Awareness,
there.
belief.
Awareness, belief, knowledge, and action. And the first three are, I think, interchangeable in terms of what order you do them in, but none of them will work until you take action. And I would also head with that and accountability, whether you're accountable to oneself by writing things down and checking things off, watching calendars, watching bank accounts, actually sitting down with a calculator and doing numbers, or you have someone to support you to do that, whether it's an accountability partner or if you do have financial services or an accountant, et cetera. The action and the accountability is the piece that makes all the rest of that work. So that's the how.
That's the how. What are some
Yeah.
of the do's and even some of the don'ts that you would
Hmm.
have for us, regarding really getting our heads on straight as far as our money mindset goes? Do's and don'ts.
I would say do, for sure, spend some time with it. What I found working with people and even with myself was that we had such an um, unfamiliarity with our true money story, with our true finances. Like, for example, sometimes bills come in, you pay them, they go out. Or if a bill comes in that you don't feel that you can handle, the envelope seal doesn't even get broken. It just kind of goes in a pile of things to do later, right? So awareness of what are your habits, what are your beliefs, and more importantly, what are your emotions when you start thinking about money, when you start thinking about bills, when you start looking at bank accounts, when the phone rings and it's a creditor, when the mail comes and it's a bill. Become aware immediately of what emotions are you feeling, because the emotions are going to tell you a lot about where it's coming from. And then from that, you can explore even further. Where is this emotion coming from? Is this my emotion? Is this an emotion from a spouse? Did it come from my upbringing with my parents? Right? Is this a mindset that I embraced from my environment or my neighborhood or
Mhm.
my social structures that I grew up in? So what is true? What is my emotion? Where did it come from? And is it something that you have some ability to change? So, I mean, that's part of it. I would say definitely when you're dealing with money mindset, figure out what the emotion is. Is it anger? Is it resentment? Is it fear? Is it excitement? Because I want to make sure that we also deal with, money mindset doesn't always mean lack and scarcity. Sometimes you can act from a place of overabundance, right? And now it still works the other way. If you are overspending, right? If you are excited about having money and excited about spending money, do those other things still align? Are those spendings in alignment with your beliefs? Are those spendings in full awareness of your current resources? And I say current because that's something that can change, right? So you can have a positive money mindset and still not have sufficient dollars to do what you want to do with your life, whether it's just pay your bills or go back to school or charities or open a business. So it all kind of has to work together, and one doesn't work without the other, the mindset and the knowledge and the belief and the strategies, etc. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Makes
Mm-hmm.
perfect sense. So those are some of the things that we should definitely do. What
Mm-hmm.
are some of the things that you think we should really absolutely avoid? Things that we should,
Wow.
you know, really keep an eye
Yeah.
on in an effort to keep ourselves on that straight and narrow path when it comes to our money mindset.
Okay. So this one's probably not going to be very popular, but I have to say the biggest thing for me was to avoid the victim mindset. In other words, looking for the scapegoat and pointing to everyone outside of myself as to why. Right. So the first thing is that you have to avoid placing blame. You have to avoid this escape hatch. You have to avoid this escape hatch. The other thing to avoid is impulse. Um, and when you start talking about money mindset, and you can definitely go deeper into this, but when you start to understand why your patterns are the way they are, you can begin to have more discipline and to not act impulsively. Some people call it, for example, shop therapy, or
Mhm.
you know, and using it the other way around. Cutting off your nose to spite your face. For example, and this is a real life example, I'm not going to pay such and such because they didn't even cash my last check. So they can just wait. I'll give it to them when they get it. Okay, that's a statement, but who is that really hurting? Right? It's not hurting the company that you owe the money to. That the bill's not going to change there. So understanding your motivations and avoiding the victim, avoiding the blame, and avoiding impulsive actions, for sure, I would say is definitely important.
Awesome. A lot of the people who are listening into our show and joining us on Facebook Live,
Hmm.
watching us on YouTube, and listening to us on our podcast, a lot of the people who are joining us in this way, they are entrepreneurs, or they might
Hmm.
be corporate women looking to make the
Hmm.
leap, or they might be small business owners. And sometimes the idea of pricing comes up. What do you have to say
Ooh,
about pricing and money mindset? How does this factor
absolutely.
in?
Wow. Okay. So with that, there's a lot that comes down to belief and self worth, right?
Mhm.
There's always that little nag in the back of one's mind that questions, but am I worth this price? Or, well, I remember what it feels like not to be able to afford the things I needed. And I have this thing that people desperately need, and I want it to be accessible to them. So I'm going to price it this far, this low, or I'm going to offer it for free and then have them pay me what they can. So a few things happen with that. Number one, I still personally believe, and I've seen evidence to this, that money is one of those things that has to flow. It's a physical representation of an energetic construct. So exchanging energy, exchanging money, needs to be in alignment. And you, as an expert, bringing solutions, bringing actual strategies and tips that can help enrich, that has value. And when you undervalue, then it allows that space for the flow to be interrupted. If you show up as the professional and the expert that you are, you do deserve that energetic exchange slash monies that are reflective of that. And I love to encourage people to go back and consider, like you talked about life skills, yes, but you've also taken classes, you've taken workshops, you've bought books, you've attended schools. Many people have certifications and trainings that they've purchased and invested, months, years of time into. That has value as well. And so pricing yourself so low, or putting yourself in a place where you're not sure if your pricing is accessible, The shift needs to be, I know that I have this product that is life changing. This will literally transform someone's experience with whatever the goal is in your expertise. And the question then becomes, what is it worth to them? You are responsible to put it out there. It's up to them to decide if it's worth it based on their beliefs. So you can't price yourself based on someone else's potential belief. And I use this as an example. If I believe that it's more important for me to go and get my health on track. I've tried diets, I've tried videos, I've tried self-help books, but now it comes down to, do I spend $500 for these sessions with a nutritionist, or do I keep trying to do it on my own? You can keep trying to do it on your own, but to what result? That nutritionist has what you need. So are you going to
Mhm.
spend $500 to get the expertise that you need, or are you going to take your $500 and buy a big flat screen TV because they marked the price down $300? So as the professional, it's not up to you to choose how that potential client spends that $500. They're going to have to spend based on where they are in their journey. It doesn't change how you show up. And what I love to also do is to remind other entrepreneurs, because this is a lesson I had to learn myself. My business coach, she's the one who ingrained it in me, that if your heart's desire is to serve communities that you know for a fact are unable to access your price point, then go to those agencies that will serve those people. There's nothing wrong with, for example, reaching out to a United Way, or I don't know, a Head Start program, or a state agency, or even a federal program, and to say, here's the product I would like to present to this population. And so then your client technically becomes that agency that serves the clients to your heart's desire. So if you want to serve a room of 100 single moms who can't afford a $50 workshop, then your client perhaps is, I don't know, that agency, the United Way, a federal program, a state program, who will pay you your rate to now be in front of those 100 women who you cannot wait to serve. Does that make
It
sense?
makes perfect sense.
Mhm.
We had another entrepreneur who also talks about money mindset who was on a show earlier, perhaps 2 weeks ago, and she also recommended doing, community workshops or
Mhm.
things like that, giving back in the community and using that as your vehicle for giving back, but not using the
Absolutely.
idea of wanting to help the community as the thing holding you back from
Yes, ma'am.
charging
Agreed.
what is an appropriate exchange
Mhm.
of energy for
Mhm.
the work that you are giving.
And then the other side of it is to look at it from a one more perspective, and it's this: if I am in need of an expert, and I desperately need change, I desperately need impact, I need to get results, and I have two or three options in front of me. Perhaps it's how we're brought up in society, but there is going to be a question mark over the head of that person who's shopping if you have this product at $50 and there's a person in the middle who has the product for $200, and there's a person on the side that has the product for $1,000. Now that person is still going to have to make a judgment as to which of these to consider, but without fail, there's going to be a question mark as to, well, what is the value that I could possibly get at this $50 price point for this huge ask and huge need that I have? So in a way, underpricing yourself, it sends the unspoken message of what is the value of what I have to offer. And you really don't want there to be a question about the value, especially if you know that you can get the results.
I love that. I was at a retreat recently, and one of our Ladies Power Lunch members was called into the hot seat by the retreat leader. You probably know her, Darla Ledoux. And it was it
Oh,
was
I
it
love
was
her.
just such an outstanding conversation. And one of the things that Darla said was that, you know, I know your work. She was talking to the entrepreneur. I know your work. It is
Mhm,
outstanding, but
mhm,
at the price point that you offer, when I'm looking for something like what you offer, I wouldn't even have considered you because your prices were too low. And
Mhm.
this was
Mhm.
obviously, somebody who could deliver the kind
Mhm.
of quality work, but because
Mhm.
of pricing herself so low, she got overlooked. And I think that
Right.
happens to us often. We could have
Mhm.
this conversation for such a long time. I feel like it's so
Sure.
rich and so meaningful, but unfortunately, we are almost up on time. I have one last question that
Sure.
I'd love for you to weigh in on. What
Okay.
about investing in ourselves? Because that seems to be another area where we struggle when it
Mhm.
comes to that idea of money mindset.
Absolutely. Um, and again, this is a mile that I've walked myself, where it wasn't until I truly started to invest in myself that I
Mhm.
also felt comfortable charging my worth. It was two
Mm,
things that kind of went hand in hand. And again, using my business coach and my experience with her as an example, she asked me, so she says, Tiffany, have you ever invested $500 in a program for your professional development? Yes, I have. Okay. Have you ever invested 1,200? Yeah, I have. Have you ever invested $3,000 to $5,000 for you to become a better coach or for any kind of certification, etc.? I said, well, yes, I have. And she says, well, if you saw the value in investing to improve yourself, what makes you think that someone else wouldn't do the same to invest in what you have to offer?
good point.
So that was one. The other thing is that this idea of growth, I believe that it's a constant flow, investing in yourself and then opening up more opportunity. The more you know, the more you grow. The more you know, the more you grow. And that flow continuing. I happen to believe in lifelong learning. And I think
Me
that every
too.
time you take the opportunity to add something into your toolkit, especially if it's in alignment with what you do and it augments and identifies you as not only an expert, but a unique expert. You know, um, I love having a nutritionist that also works with aromatherapy. What? Those two things go together. That makes you a very unique nutritionist, or the physical trainer who also opens and closes his session with meditation. Wow, that's unique. I love that. So whatever is you and whatever lends itself in alignment to what you believe and how you like to show up is only going to make you that much more effective, and it'll instinctively bring to you the clients that you can't wait to work with, because they'll be attracted to not just your products but how you show up.
I love that. That's wonderful. And unfortunately, that's where we're going to have to leave it today. Before we go,
Absolutely.
though,
Sure.
somebody is a proud and happy winner of our session with you today. So,
Love
can you
it.
choose for me a number between 1 and 20 so I can go ahead and choose today's Free Gift Friday winner?
1 and 20. I am going to go with 19.
Awesome. 19 is our very dear friend Wendy Lee is going to
Wendy
be
Lee.
our Free Gift Friday winner. So, Wendy, I'm going to invite you to join in and just connect with Tiffany. And I'm sure you guys are going to get along swimmingly.
Love
Tiffany,
it.
people are going to want to know how to reach out to you, how they can connect with you. What's your website and how are you best
Mhm.
connected?
So website is under construction. So Momentum Life Mastery Coaching on Facebook for now.
Okay.
And then it's at Tiffany Got Goals for Instagram. And what I will do is I'll come back and drop those things in the chat here. So it'll be easy to find, especially on the Facebook.
And if you have any upcoming events or programs or
Mm.
anything like that, you can feel free to drop that in the chat as well.
Will do. Will do. I have a class forming now for Discipline Works. It's a workshop that I'm going to be doing in August, and it's gonna not going to have any more than 8 students. And it's a deep dive into money mindset, into belief, into blocks and new pathways forward towards your financial goals. And you will actually walk away with a budget as well, but that's the easy part. The rest of it is where we have the big fun.
Awesome. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Tiffany. Thanks to everybody who joined us over on the Ladies Power Lunch Facebook group. And I just want to say these money mindset conversations have been so enlightening. They have been just tremendous. And if you
Mhm.
haven't had a chance to listen to all of them, my recommendation is what are you waiting for? Go listen to them. They're there for you. You can always join us on our Ladies Power Lunch Facebook group. You can join us on our YouTube channel, or you can tune in to our Ladies Power Lunch podcast. Everybody, have a wonderful rest of the day, and I'll see you on the next show. Thanks, Tiffany. Bye,
Thank you, Dr.
everyone.
Davia. Bye bye.